or bringing down inflation in the foreign jurisdiction, is that going to be the hardest? Hmm. Well, that's an ongoing and escalating scenario since inflation across the planet is rolling from one place to the other. Some places are having deflation, which is helping out other places. For example, uh, those in Ainu, quote unquote, China, they're exporting deflation all across the planet because nobody wants a quote unquote yuan. So everything is dropping through the floor in terms of pricing, which is why you're seeing what they call price rollbacks in certain places where they buy a lot of things from so-called China while they can still get it, since manufacturing is basically being shoved out of there. Other places, on the other hand, inflation comes about for different reasons. Sometimes it's population that causes inflation because um, you have the youth that basically are on their own now, and they're on their own and they spend and they spend and they spend. You know, you have the flashy vessel, they have to have the flashy clothes and everything else to attract the mate. That's the cycle of life, if you would. However, they eventually have offspring, and now they get new homes, whether they are brand new builds or whether they are existing homes, and they get durable goods, wash machines, dryers, refrigerators, stuff like this. And they're buying all these things, and they're going through their youth, and they're raising their offspring, and they're doing discretionary spending, taking them to restaurants and movies and stuff like this, plays and things like this, vacations, camping. They play baseball, basketball, football, all these sports. Some call soccer or football, or some call hockey, and all other types of sports, volleyball, handball, whatever it is. Um, but all those things are generating activity where there's transactions going on. And in that sense, um, you can see things becoming inflationary when you see massive amounts of that going on. So there's circumstances that's tied back to wages, where what folks are being paid uh, increase the cost of things that are being produced. So it costs more for things. That also is contributory to inflation. There are things such as what's happening with fuel for propulsion, quote unquote, oil price impacts that. All those things in combination can lead to inflationary environments. And you can tell where inflation is by what's happening with the quote unquote silver price. Silver quote unquote price is tied back to um, inflation. So you have situations where back in the day, like 7, 8 Earth years ago, 10, 12 Earth years ago, you would see circumstances happening where if you basically were to cut off or decrease oil production, as some would call it, in certain places, you would see the quote unquote oil price skyrocket. It doesn't happen anymore because there's so much oil everywhere, and more of it is coming to market. What folks fail to realize is oil supply was never an issue. The refining capacity has always been the issue. So when folks go to the pump to get gasoline for their land vessel, they're like, why is it so high? It's not that there's lack of oil, it's just lack of refining capacity. Parties don't want to build more refining capacity because they want to switch off to EVs, and they want to decrease the refining capacity for all types of oil-based or petroleum-based fuels, kerosene and diesel and all this. And they want to switch on to, again, solar power. They would like to switch on to wind power, even hydrogen now, which is basically a decent way to go. Parties are looking at thorium, which is a safer way to engage in nuclear reactors. Um, they want to move away from uranium based, although even with thorium reactors, there is some uranium involved, just less of it, and it's far safer and lasts longer. The reason why they didn't go with thorium, because they knew about thorium a long time ago. They didn't go with thorium because thorium can't be made into a weapon. Uranium 235, 238, on the other hand, yeah, they can make that into boom. Anyway, inflation happens for many reasons. Supply routes being impacted because folks are shooting rockets, missiles, and drones and everything else at ships going through the Kush Sea as they come in and out of the Kemetic Canal, causing ships to have to sail all around the Alkebulan as opposed to going through the canal to go into the Great Sea. That's a problem because now those ships have to go longer. That's more fuel, and the crews are aboard longer. That's more pay for the crews, and there's insurance purposes and bonding issues that go up as a consequence. All these things are players in what causes shipping costs to go up. Shipping costs goes to transportation costs, which is factored into the price that you pay when you take them off of a shelf in a store. So all these things are relative. And then you have the Central Mexican Canal, which is starting to improve now. I guess I should say, it appears to be that the drought issue may be improving a little. And if that holds true, that would explain why the heavier ships that recently couldn't get through the canal because of draft issues, there was not enough water under the keel. That has improved some. So the larger ships are starting to return to transiting that particular canal, which means you don't have to sail around South of Mexico anymore, or less vessels have to, since larger ships can now go through that canal again. What does that mean? It means it shortens the travel time of anything that's coming from the Moros Ocean, misnomer quote unquote Pacific, into the Atlantis to get into the Gulf of the Mexico when it comes to any port on the eastern seaboard coast of North America. It slows down inflation because now the supply chains and supply routes are back in sync. And all this got started, really, what you're seeing right now, for one primary factor: Russia-Ukraine war did not help. And what you're seeing happen in Al-Tanan, uh, especially what they call modern-day quote-unquote Gaza, all that carrying on with conflicting sides has caused all of the disruptions to the flow of trade. There's no Mare Liberum, or liberty of the seas. The quote unquote Black Sea, well, there is now for the Black Sea, but not so much for the Kush Sea. So you're still going to continue to see issues that will lead to inflationary issues in what some call quote unquote Europe. You're still seeing it on the mother continent now, about Alkebulan and the Abzu, in terms of the price of grains and rice. Fertilizer, for those who insist on using it, is the issue here. The Russia-Ukraine war is what caused the issue with the fertilizer. What comes out of South Mexico from Ray Bahia, misnomer quote unquote Brazil, they need 3 times the amount of fertilizer for anything they grow because their soil is more sand than soil. They can have multiple harvests per year on their soil, however, so they can contribute a lot of crop or a lot of harvest, if you would, onto the market. However, it's becoming increasingly more expensive to do it because of the decrease in the amount of fertilizer. We use, as you know, composting as opposed to fertilizer. However, the bulk of the folks on the planet use fertilizer, and that is an issue. The higher the fertilizer cost, the more it costs for food. And with parties being forced to cut back on particular things, famine is not out of the question over the next 2 or 3 Earth years. And we're already seeing right now, in the last 8 months, there was 238 million more living souls across this planet that were in what they now call food insecurity, or we just say hungry, because the access to food has decreased. That fertilizer is a serious issue, and that Russia-Ukraine war did that, is doing that. So when you ask the question, how is this going to play out for inflation, it's ongoing and rolling. Does it stop? Does it get easier or harder? Who's to say? What we do know is there are factors and there's things that you don't see, the X factor. And you can't really account for. The best thing you could do is be prudent in your decisions. Stockpile what you can. Don't worry about the wrong things. Focus on that which is strategic. The Mexican Empire, we are now getting into avocado food growth operations in the Kenyatta district. Why did you go that route? We went that route because the one thing about avocados, it's a tree. Trees don't require constantly being composted, once the tree is live and doing its thing, the tree is going to provide you fruit every season. You just leave the tree alone. The tree is going to keep on treeing. It's going to do what it does and provide fruit. And honestly, most like Kith and Kindred, they don't think beyond 20 minutes. This is not a knock. This is what the evidence presents. We can't go that route. We have to plan and backup plan and backup plan and backup plan. It's what we Virgos do.